My wife Lisa sat in the courtroom with her lawyer, celebrating her anticipated victory. "I want half of everything," she had declared. "The house, the cars, the accounts, everything." I just smiled and said, "Which assets?" "Because nothing," was what she thought it was. My name is Robert Chun. I'm 46 years old, and I'd spent the last 10 years of my marriage quietly protecting myself from exactly this moment. Not because I was planning to divorce Lisa, but because I'd learned early in our relationship that she viewed marriage as a business partnership where the goal was maximum personal benefit with minimum personal risk. The courtroom was packed that Tuesday morning in downtown Phoenix. Lisa's lawyer, David Martinez, had filed for what he called the most straightforward asset division case of the year. On paper, it looked simple. A successful couple with substantial assets acquired during 15 years of marriage, ready to be split down the middle according to Arizona's community property laws. Lisa wore her most expensive suit and the jewelry I'd bought her for our 10th anniversary. She'd spent weeks preparing for this moment, organizing financial documents and meeting with David to strategize how to maximize her settlement. She was confident, prepared, and absolutely certain she understood what we owned together. She was wrong about all of it. "Your Honor," David began, standing with the theatrical confidence of a man who'd never lost a case. He considered this simple. "My client seeks an equitable division of the marital estate. Over 15 years of marriage, Mr. and Mrs. Chun have accumulated substantial community property." He gestured toward a stack of documents on his table. "The family residence, valued at $850,000. 2 luxury vehicles worth a combined $120,000. Investment accounts, totaling $340,000. My client is entitled to half of these community assets under Arizona law." Judge Patricia Williams nodded and turned to my attorney, Sarah Kim. "Mr. Patterson, does your client dispute the existence of these assets?" "Not their existence, Your Honor," Sarah replied calmly. "But we do dispute their characterization as community property." That's when I saw the first flicker of concern cross Lisa's face, not to understand how we got to this moment. I need to explain what my marriage to Lisa had really been like beneath the surface of suburban respectability. We'd met 16 years earlier when I was a 30-year-old software engineer working for a mid-sized tech company in Phoenix. Lisa was 28, beautiful, ambitious, and working in sales for a pharmaceutical company. The attraction was immediate, the courtship was passionate, and the wedding was everything she'd dreamed of. For the first few years, I genuinely believed we were building a life together. We bought our first house, a modest 3-bedroom in Scottsdale. I handled the mortgage applications and paperwork, while Lisa focused on decorating and making the house feel like home. But small things started bothering me. Lisa never contributed to the down payment, claiming her student loans made it impossible to save money. She insisted her name go on the deed anyway, since we were married and building equity together. When I suggested she could refinance her student loans to get better rates and free up money for house payments, she said it was too complicated and asked why it mattered since my salary covered the mortgage easily. It didn't matter to me then. I was in love and believed marriage meant sharing everything equally, regardless of who contributed what financially. The pattern became clearer when we bought our first new car together. Lisa wanted a BMW, something befitting a successful couple. I suggested we could afford a nice Honda or Toyota and invest the difference, but Lisa said she'd rather drive something that reflected our shared success. Again, she contributed nothing to the down payment, but insisted her name be on the title because we were partners in everything. By year 5 of our marriage, I was funding our entire lifestyle while Lisa spent her salary on clothes, spa treatments, and personal expenses she classified as necessary for my career. When I asked if she could contribute more to household expenses, She reminded me that she was building our social network and that her professional image benefited both of us. The wake-up call came during year 7 when Lisa casually mentioned she'd spoken to a divorce attorney, not because she wanted a divorce, but because I wanted to understand my rights as a wife. What rights? I'd asked, confused. Well, I contribute to this marriage in non-financial ways, she'd explained. And Arizona is a community property state, so I'm entitled to half of what we've built together. You mean half of what I've paid for? Robert, that's not how marriage works. We're a team. Your income is our income. That conversation happened on a Thursday night. By Friday afternoon, I'd made an appointment with my own attorney. Sarah Kim was a family law specialist who'd built her reputation helping high-earning professionals protect their assets. During our first consultation, she explained the realities of Arizona's community property laws. Anything acquired during the marriage is presumed to be community property, she said. Income, real estate, investments, it all gets split equally in a divorce, regardless of who earned the money or whose name is on the accounts. Even if only one spouse contributed financially, even then, the law assumes both spouses contribute equally to the marriage, whether through income or other means. So if Lisa divorces me, she gets half of everything I've worked for? Half of everything acquired during the marriage, yes. But there are strategies to protect future assets if you're concerned about the stability of your relationship. I wasn't planning to divorce Lisa, but her casual consultation with a divorce attorney had shown me how she really viewed our marriage as a financial arrangement that guaranteed her security regardless of her contributions. That's when I started what I called asset segregation. The strategy was perfectly legal, but required careful planning and documentation. Instead of allowing new assets to become community property automatically, I started structuring our finances to maintain separate ownership wherever possible. When Lisa's car lease ended and she wanted to upgrade to a newer BMW, I suggested she finance it herself to build her own credit history. When she protested that she couldn't afford the payments, I offered to give her the money as a personal loan, properly documented with promissory notes and payment schedules. The loan meant the car title stayed in her name only, but it also meant she owned the debt. In a divorce, she would keep the car and the responsibility for payments. When we moved to our current house 3 years later, I structured the purchase as my separate property by using funds from premarital accounts and investments. Lisa's name wasn't on the deed or the mortgage, though she lived there and enjoyed all the benefits of ownership. Why isn't my name on the house? She'd asked when she saw the paperwork. Because you're not contributing to the down payment or mortgage, I'd explained. But you live here rent-free, so you're still benefiting from the investment. That doesn't seem fair. We're married. It's completely fair. You're getting the benefit of living in a beautiful house without any of the financial risk or responsibility. Lisa hadn't been happy about this arrangement, but she couldn't argue with the logic, and she certainly couldn't complain about the lifestyle it provided. The same principle applied to our investment accounts. Instead of contributing to joint accounts that would automatically become community property, I maintained separate investment portfolios that grew substantially over time. Lisa was aware these accounts existed, but assumed they would be split equally in any divorce. She was wrong. By year 10 of our marriage, I owned our house outright, held investment accounts worth over $300,000 in my name only, and had structured our lifestyle so that Lisa's spending was supported by my income, while her assets remained minimal. To anyone looking from the outside, we appeared to be a successful couple building wealth together. In reality, I was building wealth while Lisa was building a dependency on my continued financial support. The final phase of my asset protection strategy involved what Sarah called beneficial consumption. Instead of accumulating assets that could be claimed as community property, I started spending money on things that benefited both of us, but couldn't be easily divided. Expensive vacations, home improvements, dining, and entertainment all came from my income, but created experiences and lifestyle enhancements rather than divisible assets. Lisa enjoyed a luxurious lifestyle funded entirely by my earnings. But that lifestyle didn't translate into property she could claim ownership of. By the time Lisa decided to file for divorce, I'd spent 10 years ensuring that almost nothing she planned to claim was actually available for division. The divorce process started exactly as I'd expected. Lisa hired David Martinez, an aggressive attorney known for maximizing settlements for his female clients. David specialized in cases where successful husbands had accumulated substantial assets that could be split with under-earning wives. Lisa's strategy was simple. Portray herself as a devoted wife who'd sacrificed her own career to support my success, then claim half of everything we'd acquired during our marriage. During the discovery phase, David requested comprehensive financial documentation. Bank statements, investment records, property deeds, vehicle titles, everything needed to establish the full scope of our marital estate. I provided everything requested, completely and accurately. Sarah made sure every document was properly organized and clearly labeled to show the true ownership structure of our assets. That's when David started realizing his case wasn't as straightforward as he'd initially believed. "Mr. Chun," he said during my deposition, "I see that the family residence is titled solely in your name. Can you explain why your wife's name isn't on the deed?" "Because she didn't contribute to the purchase," I replied simply. "I bought the house with my separate funds as my separate property, but she lived there. She was your wife." "Yes, she lived there rent-free for 8 years. That was my gift to her, free housing in a beautiful home." "What about the vehicles?" "I see Mrs. Chun's BMW is titled in her name only." "That's correct. She wanted to establish her own credit, so she financed it herself." "With what income?" "Her salary wouldn't have qualified her for that loan. I provided her with a personal loan to cover the down payment and assist with monthly payments. The loan documentation is in your files." David spent 4 hours trying to find assets that could be characterized as community property. The house was my separate property, purchased with separate funds. The cars were either my separate property or Lisa's separate debt. The investment accounts were accumulated using my separate income in my separate name. Even our joint checking account, which Lisa assumed would be split equally, showed a clear pattern of deposits from my income and withdrawals for her personal expenses. The account itself had minimal balance because I'd stopped using it for anything except Lisa's spending money. "Mr. Chun," David said finally, "surely you must acknowledge that Mrs. Chun contributed to this marriage in non-financial ways that entitle her to a share of the assets." "I absolutely acknowledge her non-financial contributions," I replied. "And I compensated her for those contributions by providing her with a comfortable lifestyle, free housing, financial support, and access to experiences she couldn't have afforded on her own income." "But that doesn't create any property interest for her?" "Not in assets she didn't contribute to purchasing, no." 3 weeks later, Sarah received a settlement offer from David. Lisa was willing to compromise by accepting $200,000 in cash and keeping her car in exchange for waiving all other property claims. "They're desperate," Sarah told me. "David has realized he can't prove community property claims on any of your major assets. This offer suggests they know they'll get nothing if this goes to trial. What do you recommend?" "Honestly, you could probably pay her nothing, except maybe spousal support for a few years. But $200,000 might be worth paying to avoid the stress and expense of a trial." I declined the settlement offer. After 10 years of careful planning, I wasn't going to reward Lisa's attempt to claim assets she'd never contributed to. That's how we ended up in Judge Williams' courtroom on that Tuesday morning, with Lisa confident she was about to receive Half of everything in me. She was about to get a very expensive education in property law. Mr. Martinez, Judge Williams said after reviewing the submitted documents, I need you to clarify your client's claims. You're seeking division of community property, but these assets appear to be separate property owned by Mr. Chun. Your Honor, these assets were acquired during the marriage. Under Arizona law, that creates a presumption of community property. That presumption can be rebutted with clear evidence of separate property, the judge replied. And Mr. Chun has provided extensive documentation showing these assets were purchased with separate funds and titled in his name only. But Mrs. Chun contributed to the marriage in other ways. Mr. Martinez, non-financial contributions don't create property interests in assets purchased entirely by the other spouse with separate funds. If your client wants spousal maintenance, that's a separate issue from property division. I watched Lisa's face as she realized what was happening. The confident smile was gone, replaced by confusion and growing panic. Your Honor, David tried. Again, surely the family residence has some community property component. Mrs. Chun lived there for 8 years. Living in a residence doesn't create ownership rights, Judge Williams replied firmly. Mr. Chun purchased this property with separate funds, titled it in his name only, and paid all carrying costs with his separate income. Mrs. Chun's residence, there was a benefit she received, not a contribution she made. What about the vehicles? Mrs. Chun's vehicle is titled in her name and financed by her. That's her separate property, along with the debt. Mr. Chun's vehicles are titled in his name and purchased with his separate funds. Those are his separate property. The hearing lasted 2 hours, but the outcome was clear within the first 30 minutes. Every asset Lisa had planned to claim was determined to be separate property belonging to me. Every debt she'd incurred during the marriage remained her individual responsibility. But this isn't fair. Lisa finally burst out, speaking directly to the judge, despite David's attempts to silence her. I was his wife. I supported his career. Mrs. Chun, Judge Williams said calmly, you received significant support and benefits during your marriage. You lived rent-free in a beautiful home, received financial support for your personal expenses, and enjoyed a lifestyle funded by your husband's income. Those were the benefits you received in exchange for your contributions to the marriage. But I don't have anything. You have your vehicle, your personal belongings, and the possibility of spousal maintenance if you can demonstrate need and your husband's ability to pay. But you don't have property rights in assets you didn't contribute to purchasing. The final decree was signed 30 days later. Lisa received no property settlement, no division of assets, and no share of my investments or home equity. She did receive temporary spousal support of $2,000 per month for 3 years, enough to help her transition to financial independence. She also kept her BMW and the remaining $23,000 debt she owed on it. The total cost of the divorce was approximately $15,000 in legal fees, compared to the $500,000 plus Lisa had expected to receive in property division. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I sold the house and moved to a smaller place closer to my office. The $850,000 sale price went entirely to me, as did the profit from selling my investment portfolio when I relocated to a new job in California. Lisa, meanwhile, had to move in with her sister while she looked for an apartment she could afford on her pharmaceutical sales income. Her lifestyle changed dramatically when she no longer had access to my financial support. I can't believe you did this to me, she said during one of our final conversations as we divided personal belongings. I didn't do anything to you, I replied. I protected myself from what you were planning to do to me. We were married. We were supposed to be partners. Partners contribute equally, Lisa. You spent 15 years taking from this marriage while contributing as little as possible. When you decided to end it, you expected to take even more. I supported your career. I was a good wife. You were? A wife who lived comfortably on my income while building your own escape plan. The difference is that I built mine better. A year later, I received word through mutual friends that Lisa had remarried, a man 10 years older who owned a successful insurance agency. Apparently, she'd learned from our divorce experience and was being more careful about choosing financially stable partners. As for me, I'd learned the most valuable lesson of my adult life. Good intentions and generous gestures mean nothing if the other person sees them as obligations rather than gifts. The asset protection strategy that saved me, nearly $500,000, hadn't been motivated by greed or spite. It had been motivated by the recognition that Lisa viewed our marriage as a financial arrangement where her goal was maximum benefit with minimum contribution. When someone shows you who they really are, the smart response isn't to change them or hope they'll grow. The smart response is to protect yourself while hoping you're wrong. God, in Lisa's case, I was right to protect myself. Her casual consultation with a divorce attorney during year 7 of our marriage had revealed her true priorities, and her confident expectation of a large settlement had confirmed that she'd never seen our relationship as a genuine partnership. Divorce reversal hadn't been a surprise attack or a dirty trick. It had been 10 years of careful planning based on clear evidence of how Lisa really viewed our marriage. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't hurting someone who's wronged you. Sometimes it's simply refusing to let them hurt you. And sometimes the most important victory isn't what you win, it's what you don't lose.